here's 4 games with Edric that I recorded yesterday, I think. And I don't remember, I brought them up yesterday, and I don't remember what the outcome of each one's going to be, but we'll run through it. I know that the first 3 were yesterday, and the last one was today. The first 3 are using yesterday's version, which has changed. The third one's using today's. So anyway, looks like I'm playing Teneb the Harvester. And I don't know if I keep this hand or not, but I don't think so. There's a keeper. So my opponent leads off with, wow, Mana Crypt Soul Ring. Unable to get down with a Boreal Druid, so 2 mana to his potential 6. Oh, and into Realms Uncharted, so he's able to really come screaming out the gates here. I do remember this. I was looking at this pile, and I was thinking that if I gave him Flooded Strand and Marsh Flats, he would play one of them now and then play one on the next turn and then get down with Teneb. I didn't really want to give him... So I didn't want to give him both, and at that point it was a matter of tempo. Did I want to give him one of those in a Glaciers, one in a Basilica, or Basilica and Glaciers? Now, Basilica and Glaciers is slow, but the problem with it is that you can play the Glaciers, and on the next turn you activate the Glaciers, play Basilica, picking up the Glaciers, removing the drawback, and then on the third turn you've got a ton of mana, turning basically these 2 like a pickup land in Glaciers is almost like having a free ramping growth, but it's slow, so I ended up deciding to go that route. I decided to go for speed and killed his 2 sack lands there. So he plays his Glaciers, and then I get down with Arbor Elf, Cradle, Fellows, and attack for 1. So this turn he's able to Glaciers and then Basilica. So you can see like how strong that is. Putting land into play and then a tap land into play with no drawback, basically. And then I draw that. So I decide I'm not going to try to go get land for Raphaelos here. I'm going to, get down with trying to ramp into, like, I'm going to try to play catch up with him and draw some cards and see if I can sort of recover from this game. So what's interesting is on turn 1 he had 5 mana, and I hadn't even taken a turn yet. And then here it is. On the next turn, he plays the Realms and gets a land down. And on the third turn, he's able to play 3 more land. But at this point in the game, I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, up to 12 mana next turn. All I have to do is 13 if I play a land, which I can do 14 actually off the Ranger, and then it's going to cost me 2 out of 12 mana left. 2 to cast the Ranger, play the Forest. The Forest now produces 1 from Raphaelos. Cradle produces +1. The Forest itself produces a mana. So yeah, crazy to see that he had 5 mana in turn 1 and he played 3 mana last turn, and he's way behind. I love how I think, honestly, this ability to just completely like accelerate to insane proportions is one of the big reasons that I think that I'm almost feel like blue-green is kind of mandatory to play in this format because the format is about fast mana. That's the whole format. This entire format, whatever you're trying to do, whatever you think you're doing, what you should be doing is accelerating and then doing crazy things, and nobody does it better than green and artifacts, and there's no reason you can't play both in the same deck, and that's what I think makes this deck a little nuts. Anyway, look at this, Day of Judgment. So now all that 15 mana or whatever I had is reduced to 2. So how do I win this game? Or do I even win this game? And now he's got a Skull Clamp to go along with everything, as well as Life from the Loam for his cycling lands. So, I guess I see why I recorded this game. So at least I'm able to follow up with a land, which will turn the Cradle on. So I actually get another island, and then regrow my Bloom Tender to try to start recovering my mana. So he, on his turn, I'm going to minimize his commander and mine, plays a Grave Titan and thaws. And for my turn, not quite sure what just happened. Are we going to glitch out? Wow, I am having so much trouble with magic glitching on my games now. I've recorded the best game I ever played. It's gotten ruined, and now this game gets ruined too. Anyway, if you want to know what happened, I sower his Grave Titan, and he doesn't have a way to deal with it. He cycles a bunch of cards and draws some cards and like plays Teneb or whatever. And then from there I have Grave Titan Cradle going. I think he played his commander, and do I sower it? Or no, I treachery it. I treachery his Titan, and then I play like Shackles, Bloom Tender, or something crazy. Anyway, within a couple of turns, I'm attacking him with Grave Titan, and I've got insane amounts of mana with Cradle going, and everything he does gets constantly set back, and he ends up losing. But obviously, like, I mean, you know, when an opponent has 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, a Draw Engine, a Grave Titan, a Skull Clamp, and you're reduced to 2 lands, you should lose the game. But I assure you that I don't. I just have to take my word for it. So, okay, game 2 against Tortoise versus Hare. Him going first. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm having these problems with glitches, but it's kind of infuriating. Anyway, so game 2 is against this guy, and I have a fantastic hand. I obviously keep. Oh, that's some guy that forced DC'd. So I ramp out the gates, and he wastes a bounce spell on Soul Ring. I mean, never bounce a Soul Ring. It's +1 mana for me to play. You're not even setting me. You're setting me back a mana, but I actually gain mana on the turn I cast him. At least bounce something that costs me a mana and is summoning sick. Anyway, I think I actually mentioned that to him in chat. So I just completely ignore his bounce spell. Start developing even further, and go ahead and Mystic him, or hit him with a Mystic for cards. I think the reason I recorded these games is actually because somebody was saying that like this deck can't beat somebody who has lots of removal, and that was the key thing. In the last game, my opponent like blasted me down. He ramped out the gates, blasted me down to no mana, and he still ends up losing that game. In this game, my opponent sweeps away all of my cards and has tons of removal in his deck, and you'll see how it plays out for him. And more super ramp there, Mana Crypt. So he jolts. Probably should have waited for me to pay or not pay the upkeep, but I guess he didn't want me to not pay and then have a counterspell. So I can then Fire and Ice, Sword of Fire and Ice rather, and draw my card there. And go ahead and just cast her Ophelis. At least at this point, so he then Praetor's Grasp me, and I figured whatever he's going to get is probably going to suck for me. I thought perhaps Bribery. I mean, he got to see my deck, so he could anticipate what would be the best play here. Or actually Mana Drain. I was kind of worried that he was going to Mana Drain whatever my play was, so I lead off with Edric thinking like, well, you know, 3 mana spells Mana Drain is not as bad as it could be. Then swing in, but you know, he doesn't have a counter or removal spell there. So, could you... and then since he's playing a big creature deck, I figured, you know, Bribery here is probably going to break him off pretty good. So I go for Aquarian Bribe, and then here's the aha moment. He has no creatures. He's trying to be like a queen, I guess. So you can see his deck. He's got Factor Fictions, tons of removal, tons of drawing, Damnation, you know, Dreadbore, Cruel Ultimatum, Cryptic, Counterspells, Vapors, Chaos Warps for the Commander, Creature Theft, Bitter Blossom, Tutors, Rolling Earthquake, Rhystic Study. This is a deck built to hate on Edric if any deck possibly can. So it turns out he took my mystical tutor. Any mysticals for Green Sun Zenith? Pretty nice play there, right? Sweeps away my board again and increases the cost of my Edric even further. So in response, I pump my Raphellos, tap him for mana, allow the sweep to happen, and then cast Scrib, which lets me get in with Sword of Fire and Ice. But before I do, I actually metamorph the sword and double equip. So this way I figured, he's trying to kill my creature, so this way I figured, well, let's try to approach it from a different angle. Let's try to draw cards off sword instead of Edric, and I'll get back to my commander later. So I draw a few cards there, and I know that he could potentially have played Thraxamunder here, but I was willing to risk it since I had Sower. But what he does instead is he goes and gets Far and Away. I'm not sure why the picture is a Mana Crypt there. And then forces me to sacrifice a creature. And I was actually really hoping to have found a green sackland so that I would have so I'd have the ability to go get a creature in response to what I anticipated would be Thraxamunder. Doesn't matter though, I didn't get one, so end of turn I just go ahead and fetch my breeding pool and play Hivemaster Edric so that I'm now Thraxamunder proof. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this commander. You know it's the Thrax. And we have this big, long conversation about, I look through his deck, and I'm like, why aren't you playing Mana Drain and Mind Twist? Or why didn't he at least go get my Mana Drain instead of, the Mystical? And he says that he feels it's unethical. And then, yet somehow he feels that Mana Crypt is perfectly ethical, and also, like, some of the other crazy cards that he was playing, like, well, you saw his deck. Obviously, like, there's some pretty powerful and ridiculous things in there. So it's really funny. Like, he just draws an arbitrary line as though he is Wizards of the Coast, and he can decide what is fair and what's not fair. So, anyway, he's decided Mana Crypt is fair, but Mana Drain is not. And I point out that Mana Crypt is restricted in the most powerful format in the game, and Mana Drain is unrestricted. And he doesn't care, so whatever. It's funny. Even in the classic format that Wizards has created online, the only exists online, Mana Crypt is banned. Mana Drain and Mind Twist are unrestricted. You can play 4 of each. Anyway, so finally, after an exceptionally long conversation, in which I wait till I'm at 42 seconds on the clock, I finally draw a card, and he goes for, I can't remember, he tries to make a play to stop me from winning, and bottom line is, anyway, bottom line is, like, I end up counterspelling his play, regrowing my counterspell, and then, as you can see, with 1 second on the clock, he dies, and I win the game. Another victim of playback glitch, my son in the background there. Sorry about the ambient noise in this recording, but our house is so busy these days. So in the third game, maybe we'll have 4 for 4 on playback glitches. I don't even know at this point. I keep this hand here. My opponent wins a roll. I just thought that was cool because, my opponent plays ramp and sweeper and then a sweeper, and then it doesn't matter, I still crush him, sort of counteracting some of the claims that I've had levered against me. So anyway, at the end of my opponent's turn in this game, I play Scrib, untap and cast Edric, and get in for a card. Now he's drawing 2 per turn with an Arena. It's not good. And he suspends a Chronicler, so he's going to be drawing 3 next turn. And I draw a Predator, so I was thinking first things first. Let's see what else we can find. And there's a claim. So I'm pretty sure I just claimed the arena here. But maybe not. Oh, I see. So I tap a bunch of mana and use some Scrib Ranger tricks in order to get a Garrick into play. And then floating mana, I'm able to claim his arena and transmute my Muddle in order to get Arreo. So I'm planning on flipping an Arreo next turn. And with Scrib, I have protection for Garrick. I'm actually really, really liking this Scrib Ranger suggestion that I received. I'm quite good. Unfortunately, not being Aquarian, you can Eyeblight's ending it. So in this particular case, it didn't work out for me. But it still has done good things this game. And he then recoils Edric to set me back even further, who I exile, so I don't have to discard a real card. He takes down my Garrick. So, I mean, this looks pretty bad. I mean, this looks like it's going to be pretty difficult to recover from. So just go for a little stall and Sylvan. Never too bad of a plan. He gets down Masked Admirers, so I'm actually on a fairly fast clock here of his making. And I kind of regret having fetched out the Arreo at this point in the game. And he goes for a Muldrifter, which I counter. At least shrinking his Chronicler. He played it before combat, so he'd be able to hit me for even more damage. And I take 8 to the face, plus 1. Plus 8 more. So I'm at 12. So definitely not looking too good. But never give up. So 1, 2, I'm done. And he swings in for a 9, which I let through. And remand his Veil, so I have more time. Right into Snap. And now I've got a ton of mana available. I find myself a Rift, but I don't need it just yet. So first things first. Arreo, so that I don't screw this up. Fellows gets me down with a solid wall of squirrels. Snap picks up the Hermit so that I can get down with another wall of squirrels at some point. And then I cast Jiraga and flip Arreo. And in response, he rifts the Arreo. Which I think works, because, I mean, if he allowed me to flip Arreo on his turn, even though he'd have 7 mana, he wouldn't have been able to rift Overload, because it would have just been countered. So he kind of had to burn it. So it was a really nice. And now he decides not to swing. I think because, if he does, I'm just going to chump and then play Edric and draw like a billion cards. So during my upkeep, I tap the Vault. And set myself up like that, taking a Clamp. So first I go down for Tez. I get down with Tezzeret. And I fetch myself a Crucible so that I can start stripping. Strip away his blue. So I can start stripping. That sounds a little funny. And then I clamp a squirrel and draw a few extra cards and say go. So he tries to get in for damage or just save himself, and is able to bog my Strip Mine, which is great. Perfect little response for Crucible there. So upkeep, I untap the Vault. And now I've got a Spell Pierce in my hand, so I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable. And Tezzeret fetches a Mox Diamond, which allows me to then replay the Verdant from the graveyard thanks to Crucible. Get myself another forest for Ophelis. And of course it also shuffled away the 2 lands that were on the top of the deck. Now, I've played the Mox Diamond, so that's 1 spell. So then I play the Hermit, that's 2. And then I play Arreo and Trigon Predator. So I want to continue to attack his mana. and for whatever reason, Arreo doesn't flip. I somehow, I seem to have counted incorrectly, and I'm not sure what it was that I did wrong. So I come back up here to look, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I cast another spell this turn? Oh, right. So it was only 3 spells. I guess because I didn't cast the Mox, I put it in play with Tezzeret. So yeah, that's right. I was anticipating a flip. It didn't happen. But I had just enough mana anyway to follow up with Sword, and it was okay. And then he gives up, I guess. So yeah, Drained Hermit for the win. So anyway, that was 3 games, 2 of which got broken, but I think they were pretty excellent games and very indicative of the longevity and power of the deck, the ability to recover from having nothing but 2 lands in play, or having somebody kill all your stuff over and over and over again. It's just such a powerful deck, and if it gets ahead, usually you're not coming back, and it's very fast at getting ahead, although a good sweeper will certainly get you back in the game. So anyway, these are the changes that I made, which weren't necessarily reflected in that last game. I added Gilded Lotus, a Future Sight, a Sensei's Divining Top, and a Grim Monolith to the deck. I took out the little 1-drop who counters instants or sorceries, the little merfolk. I'm still on the fence about how I feel about that, but yeah, I took him out. Possibly he might come in for Spell Pierce. I don't know, because Spell Pierce counters like a lot more and a lot more easily. So maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, he's out, and a few other things came out. I switched Scrib in for Quirion. Oh, I had to take out the Signet, and I took out the Springleaf Drum in order to make room for the Lotus and the Grim. They're more powerful cards. They're more broken cards. They let you cheat in big ways, and Gilded Lotus rewards, like that game where he Damnation me. Had I been able to play a Lotus beforehand, imagine he would have Damnation me down to only 5 mana. It would have been much easier for me to continue on with my game plan. So because I've faced a lot of these sweepers, I realized that Lotus belongs in here. It's very easy to cheat into play with like Rofellos or something, and it gives me a form of insurance against board wipes, creature wipes, and it's just powerful. And then Grim, on the other hand, just lets me do unfair things quickly. Grim, a Zenith, a Terastodon, a Hermit into play. Obviously, the Lotus into play. Quickly bribery your opponent, treachery them, Tezzeret them, that type of thing. And then as far as Future Sight and Top goes, I actually pulled a land. I pulled a forest, which gives me an equal number of forests to islands. But I pulled a forest for the top, thinking that I will probably be okay finding lands. Top is fairly powerful, fairly broken card. There's a reason why it keeps getting banned, or in many formats. It's not just about time. It's also totally ridiculous with Future Sight. And I figured Future Sight is to cards what Lotus is to mana. While I'm typically going to win with Edric drawing me a bunch of cards, and my mana dorks producing a bunch of mana, this gives me the ability to win with a non-creature sources in which I either have tons of mana from some other source or tons of cards from some other source. And so if my opponent has something like a heavy anti-creature deck, Humility, Terminus, and stuff like that, he can still easily lose the game to some of my other plays. And that's what I want. I want a deck that attacks on all fronts, develops in all possible directions, and gives my opponent no easy outs. Your Vandal Blast doesn't necessarily beat me. Wrath of God doesn't necessarily beat me. That kind of thing. Humility doesn't necessarily win against me. I can win, all different manner. The trick is whether or not I've cut my mana down so far that I'm gonna mulligan too much, and I can't answer that question yet. I'll have to play more games and find out what changes may or may not need to be made. in order to account for that, if that's the case. So that sums up everything. It's a lot of talking. It's a long video. Last 2 videos have been very long. But I do appreciate you for subscribing, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.